I'm 26, and my friend with benefits, who's 26, was going through a breakup. She had been in a relationship with her boyfriend for 6 years, but things hadn't been working out for a while. He had his own career struggles, which weighed heavily on him, and it had. Then, one evening, everything changed. It had been another long day, full of emotional back and forth and attempts to comfort her as she processed everything. We were sitting on the couch, not talking much, just existing together in the quiet. She had been texting her ex, and I could see the frustration mounting on her face as he continued to demand her attention. I wanted to say something, to tell her to block him again, but I didn't. I had no right to push her. But the feeling of helplessness gnawed at me. That's when she did something that caught me completely off guard. She grabbed my hand and looked at me with a strange, almost resigned expression. "I need to do this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I had no idea what she meant until she stood up and walked toward the door. Confused, I followed her, and before I could catch up to her, she opened the door and stepped outside. I stood frozen in place, unsure of what was happening. Then I saw her talking to him, her ex, standing in front of our building, his face red from anger or crying, I couldn't tell. I watched from the window, unable to make sense of what was going on. He had followed her, and she had let him in. My heart sank as I realized what was happening. She wasn't just trying to move on. She was going back to him. I felt a mixture of anger, confusion, and betrayal. After everything that had happened, after how close we had gotten, she was going back to him? Was everything I had done meaningless? Did she ever really care about me in the way I had cared about her? It felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me, leaving me standing there, exposed and unsure of what to do next. But just when I was about to retreat, to shut myself off from everything that had just unfolded, something else happened. The door swung open, and she rushed back in, her face flushed and her eyes wide with shock. She was shaking, but not from cold. Something had happened outside, and I could see the fear in her eyes. Before I could ask what had happened, she collapsed onto the couch, her breathing heavy. She looked at me, her eyes pleading for something, understanding, maybe, or just a place to hide from the chaos outside. "He's gone," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "He came here, and it wasn't what I thought. He wasn't even upset anymore. He was angry, but he wasn't crying anymore. He was blaming me. And then, out of nowhere, he said he was seeing someone else." I stood there, trying to process what she had said. He had found someone else. After all the crying, all the begging, all the desperate attempts to get her back, he had already moved on. I could feel a strange mixture of relief and anger wash over me. What had just happened? Was he trying to hurt her by showing that he had moved on so quickly? But that wasn't the twist. The twist came when she reached for her phone and showed me a message he had sent just before he left. "I've been seeing her for a while," it read. "I wasn't the one who needed you. You were just a comfort, and I'm over it." That moment of clarity hit her like a ton of bricks. The emotional manipulation, the cries, the drunken calls, they had all been a facade, a way for him to keep her in his grasp while he had already made his choice. She wasn't the one who needed to be fixed. It was him who had used her to mask his own insecurities, and now, in one moment, she saw everything clearly. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "I don't know what to feel," she said softly. "He just moved on, like it was nothing, and I was the one holding on." I felt a pang of empathy for her. The reality of what she had just discovered, that everything she had been trying to fix wasn't hers to fix, hit her all at once. She had been manipulated into believing she had a choice in the matter, But the truth was that he had made his decision long before she had even realized it. In that moment, everything I had been feeling, the anger, the confusion, the jealousy, seemed insignificant. She was hurting, not because of me, but because of the lies she had been fed. I took her hand and, how would you feel if your partner hid their affair for months or even years? Write in the comments. Mine, realizing that for the first time, I wasn't just a friend offering comfort. I was someone who could help her heal, someone who could offer her the emotional space to process everything. But just as I thought the situation was settling, the phone rang again. I watched as she glanced at it, her face tightening in fear. It was him. But this time, something was different. She didn't answer. Instead, she locked her phone and threw it on the couch. "I'm done," she said, more to herself than to me. And in that moment, everything changed. It wasn't about what had happened between us anymore. It wasn't about the kiss or the emotional turmoil. It was about her finally letting go of the past and deciding to move forward.